Hi everybody, fellow YouTubers, Magic players, what have you. My name is Darren Yoho, aka the Dude himself, here with another deck tech of a commander that is fairly new to the format, Ezuri, Claw of Progress. That nice Simic color scheme. Everybody loves me a little Simic every once in a while, you know what I'm saying? But, a fun fact, I've done this video 2 and I would say a half times now. Because the first time I did it, apparently I didn't see that I was doing things wrong in my gameplay. You know, and I want to put out the best, kind of video possible, but along with that, in my play groups, nobody is saying that I'm doing anything wrong. It's like, what? So I'm doing stuff wrong, but nobody else is noticing it. And then when I did the deck tech video and was showing it and, explaining the things that I was doing, people were noticing and saying, hey, this isn't right, that doesn't work right. So I wanted to make sure I did it correctly, and that way we put out the best quality Ezuri explanation video possible. V2.5. Ezuri Elves version 2.5. So, got Ezuri. Draga Warcaller. He's the first seed elf on our list. And for good reason, because he is also one of our main win conditions. Whenever we get a bunch of Ezuri Elf triggers with that, 2 or less power, dump all your 1/1 counters on him, and then he gives all your elves, including your general, a +1 for each, counter. So that's pretty bitchin'. He's swag. Swag. I'll put you off to the side here, Ezuri. So we have Priest of Titania. I have 14 elves, okay? That's 14 with a 1 and a 4. And about 34 creatures total. So I wanted to keep my elves to a minimum and just have, the bare bones, just the elves that really go for the throat. Priest of Titania does just that. Minimal cost, triggers Ezuri, elf, taps to add a bunch of mana. Sage of Hours. I'm not a big combo player, but I figured I'd give this one a go, and surprisingly it's won me quite a few games out of nowhere, and some people don't like that, but you know what, hey, that's part of life. Sometimes you get shit on, sometimes you're doing the shitting. In this case, I was doing the shitting. Sakura Tribe Elder. It's a land fetch mechanic that triggers Ezuri. Snapcaster Mage. I run some nice board wipe, some utility spells in here, so he triggers Ezuri at instant speed and gets me some value with using those spells again. Viridian Zealot was my replacement to Acidic Slime. Acidic Slime does hit more, and it's more of a staple than Viridian Zealot, but this is 3 less mana, it's an elf, triggers Ezuri, and it destroys 2/3 as much. So, good enough for me, right? Right. Gyre Sage Elf, again, taps for a bunch of mana. I'm going to dump, say, 4 counters on it, and that's it. I'm just going to use 1 attack phase, 1 combat phase worth of counters to put on him, and then that's it. He taps for 4 more. He's good to go. Blighted Agent, a secondary win condition, a little bit of infect. I don't really like to run necessarily a ton of infect in a lot of decks. But he's unblockable, he triggers Ezuri, and he's a rogue. That creature type comes into play, and I'll show you later on why. But he's unblockable and infect. Usually I get no more than 2 hits at him. He's a 2-hit wonder, we'll say. 2-hit wonder. So, that's pretty awesome. Edric Spymaster of Trest. Here's one of my mistakes I made in the previous video. What I was doing in my meta, I was using Woodland Bellower, tutor up Edric, and Woodland Bellower says you can't tutor up a legendary permanent, or legendary creature. So nobody else noticed that, but and so I didn't know. And then, you guys being so generous with your explanations kind of helped me see the light. So I'm no longer tutoring Edric up with Woodland Bellower. Thank you. He's a 3-mana 2/3 or 2/2 elf rogue. Boom, those 2 creature types, elf rogue, he's the perfect guy for this. And he also gives me card advantage and also helps to kind of draw some hate away from me in the early game. So he gets a lot of the job done. Eternal Witness. Not an elf, but still pretty bitchin'. Elvish Archdruid. Buff up all your elves and tap to add a ton of mana. Perfect. Ezuri. Can't have Ezuri without his younger self. Ezuri. The Renegade Leader works perfectly in this because he triggers Ezuri, he keeps your elves a little safe, and kind of gives you an alternate win route. So when you're ready to start wrecking face, he gives you the wrecking ball and provides the face. So he'll help you get the job done. Wreck Sage. Who doesn't love them some Wreck Sage? Again, it's cheaper than Acidic Slime, so it keeps your curve low, and it's an elf. So puts in work. Thassa, God of the Sea. When you're loading things up with a ton of 1/1 counters and you don't have an evasion mechanic, he provides that source, that a little bit of evasion you need just to wreck somebody. The Scry I find is often irrelevant, even though that's probably her best feature. But for me, I use that unblockable more than I can count. Timberwatch Elf. Timberwatch Elf will steal games out of nowhere. So if you see him, you be wary because I can target any creature. That's, say, you know, opponent A and B I'm facing. Opponent A attacks opponent B, and I decide, hey, you know, I'm going to help you out. Boom, give you a little buff up, help take out opponent B. You know, provides a little utility. Wood Elves. Pretty much a land fetch again on a stick that triggers Ezuri. Same thing with Farhaven Elf. Gives you that ability to tutor up a basic land, which is nice sometimes. That way you have targets for things like Earthcraft and Squirrel Nest, which I'll get to those later. Glenelender Archmage is a very fun little nifty tool that she's a creature counterspell of sorts with flying, so having that, you know, evasion is good. Persist is great because every time she comes into play, boom, 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 she's going to trigger Ezuri, and you're going to get a free counter for, you know, your experience counters. And if you want to keep her around, you can put your 1/1 counters from Ezuri going into combat onto her, and it'll keep her around. So you're going to get multiple use out of her, as much as you want, really. Immaculate Magistrate. This is even better than Timberwatch Elf because she puts 1/1 counters on a creature, which is really, really cool. I definitely wreck people with this and maybe 2 elves and things like Inkmoth Nexus and the Blighted Agent. All it takes is 2 good hits and she's gonna claim a head. Venser, Shaper Savant. He is a flashy utility spell on a stick that triggers Ezuri at instant speed, returns a permanent, kinda remans a spell. He's pretty sweet. Sower of Temptation gives us that ability to steal creatures with a creature that triggers Ezuri and it has flying. Chances are you're just going to draw some hate spells and you'll have to give that creature back, but you know what? That's one hate spell they used on the Sower versus something else. Oracle of Moldiah, which is an elf, so that's kind of swag. Well, emphasis on the S there. W-A-G +1 for the Oracle of Moldiah. Oracle is one of my favorite cards. If I'm running green, I'm running Oracle. 4 mana 2/2 elf gives you some card advantage by playing extra lands. Meloku, the Clouded Mirror. I personally, you know, again, my opinion, I personally hated the Kamigawa block. Hated it. I was there, okay? I was there. I played Magic then. I was there. I saw it go down. I saw it unfold. I saw the meta before it, and I saw the meta after it. Hated it. There was maybe a speck of cards in the whole damn block that I really cared for. Theros, again, in my opinion, Theros is the new Kamigawa because I thought that whole fucking block was worthless. I didn't even want hardly anything out of it. Prophet of Krufix I wanted. I mean, that was about it. But anyways, Meloku the Clouded Mirror is a 5 mana 2/4 flyer, so she herself will trigger Ezuri, and her ability will allow you to trigger Ezuri like wicked, insane amounts. So that's pretty bitchin'. Make some 1/1 flyers, trigger Ezuri, and suit up those flyers with counters. Progenitor Mimic is another one of those utility spells that, I mean, it can really be whatever you want it to be, and it's going to make more of whatever you want it to be. Prime Speaker Zagana. Whenever you get a creature with 5 or 6 or more 1/1 counters on it from Ezuri, boom, that's 5 or 6 or 7 extra cards you're going to be drawing with Prime Speaker. Reloads your hand, refuels your game. Wreckage of the enemies. Woodland Bellower. A fun creature tutor spell that I kind of count as like a tutor spell. Fetch yourself whatever bullet you need to gun down your opponents. This is the Wild West, and the Woodland Bellower is the sheriff in town. Whip this gun out, and boom, you're fetching a creature, non-legendary, definitely not going to be an Edric, Spymaster of Tress, I could tell you that for sure. Definitely not going to be him. But, any creature, convert mana cost 3 or less, boom, slap it into play, boom, get an Ezuri trigger, boom, wreckage. Then we got Soul of the Harvest. Harvesting souls up in this bitch. So, 6 mana, 6/6, trample. That's good. He's a big creature who can hold his own and trample through to win games on his own. So, we can put counters on him and he will just go to town and win by himself. If he stays in play with that 30 creatures and the 14 elves, we're going to be drawing cards. So, he's going to end the game faster and get us the card advantage to do more things quicker. Definitely a very underrated card in Commander. Con Sphinx, I mean, love it, hate it. I liked it. It wasn't in my original iterations. I probably built this deck, tested it, scrapped it, rebuilt it a different way, scrapped it, rebuilt it a third way, scrapped it. Finally came to this iteration and it actually was included in it, and I found that it actually did very well with the flying and the 4/6 body. That's kind of what really helped me, is having a flying creature that could really get me some card advantage and help me win a game at the same time. So Con Sphinx was very good. Get out of here, Con Sphinx. Fuck. So we got Archetype of Imagination. Basically, this is another big win condition. You put him down, your stuff's going to go through unimpeded to the enemy's face. Plain and simple. They might as well say all your stuff has unblockable, because your opponents lose flying, you gain flying. It's such a powerful card. That's one of my favorite cards. That's one of the few cards out of that whole damn shitty block, Kamigawa 2, the Theros Kamigawa 2 block, that I liked. Adventurer's Zendikar. Triggers Ezuri like you would not believe. Each one of those plants enters, triggers Ezuri. That's worth it alone, let alone having the massive board state of creatures that will, progressively get bigger as the game goes on. Regal Force is the Avengers Zendikar's other cousin. Slightly uglier, a little more rotund. He's got a stick, maybe a tree, a walking stick. Well, he's got saplings to help him get around. Whenever I say tutor for 2 creatures, I tutor for these 2. Because he's going to trigger Ezuri, he's going to draw me cards. There's nothing more that I could need in a game of Magic. Defense of the Heart, I'll show you that later. That's what I use to get those. Craterhoof Behemoth, your typical game-ending culprit. Now we got Woodfall Primus. Unlike the band, Woodfall Primus is a big-bodied trampler. So, that being said, you can suit him up with the 1/1 counters and he will go to town just like Soul of the Harvest. He can win you the game through that massive trample damage. He's got Persist, which means he's going to keep coming back. He's going to be hard to get rid of. And then, every time he comes into play, you're going to pop something. That's awesome. This is Swag plus 3. We're getting to the ultimate swag levels here. Swag plus 3 is this guy. So, maximum swaggage with Woodfall Primus. And then when we put more 1/1 counters on him, from him returning to play with Persist, it kind of negates the negative counters that he gets. So he stays in for even longer. It's impossible to get rid of this guy. I mean, unless you exile him or some shit. I mean, yeah, but who does that in Commander? Pfft, like nobody. Who does that? Nobody. Nobody runs Swords to Plowshares or Path to Exile or, I don't know, Life's Finale or Final Judgment, I don't know, whatever, what have you. Magic cards, nobody does that. Anyways, we're getting into our mana rocks, our mana ramp section here. Soul Ring, staple. Thought Vessel. I frequently have more cards in hand than I am supposed to have. Thought Vessel allows me to keep those cards versus discarding them at end of turn. I highly recommend investing in these. These are pretty stapley. I mean, they can go in so many decks whether you really need them or not, and they won't do you wrong, I promise. Burgeoning helps me guarantee that I can get that early game Ezuri out and get those triggers going even faster. Same goes for Exploration. Exploration is going to guarantee that I get an earlier game Ezuri. Oops. Kodama's Richu. You got the scraggly old man hands coming from the forest. Yeah, I don't want to get touched by them hands. Get the fuck out of here, Kodama. What are you reaching for, creeper? This chewed up version of Kodama's Reach fetches you lands. I mean, ramps you ahead. Guarantees you're going to get that 4th mana on turn 4 plus the 1 in your hand. So you'll have 5 lands turn 4. In the perfect scenario. And whenever you play Ezuri, you might be able to play a 1/1 creature or something. Maybe you got extra lands. Maybe you can play a 2/2 creature. I don't know, a 2-mana creature. So it gives you options. Love it. Like it, love it. Get out of my face. Zendikar Resurgent. 7 mana, so it's kind of a high drop in this deck. So I got a pretty low curve. But this one just nets you so much advantage. Doubles your lands, and whenever you cast one of your 34 creatures and 14 elves, you get to draw a card. That is so baller. This gets you so much. This will win you the game through such sheer card advantage in this type of build of a deck. Sylvan Library. It's your standard stock, perfect green draw spell. Pop it out turn 2, and you got a strong game going. Rhystic Study. When you're done at the Sylvan Learning Library, you go and study Rhystically. You draw cards. You draw cards at the library, you study Rhystically, you draw more cards. Because some stupid people won't pay. And you will study and study and study, and they will not pay. And you will draw for them not studying at the library. Harmonize. When you need harmony, Harmonize gives you cards. Green Sun Zenith, old GSZ. Green Sun Zenith. My typical tutor targets are, if I have this in my opening hand and I really want it, I'll fetch up Dryad Arbor. Right off the bat, get me a 2nd land into play turn 1. Shuffles back in. Late game, I've also tutored for Dryad Arbor because it'll trigger Ezuri. It's a 1/1 creature, triggers Ezuri for 1 mana. That's pretty cool. Otherwise, I usually save this for Edric. So, save it for Edric if you need to. Genesis Wave. With all those elves that tap for mana based on the number of elves, I frequently get to cast this fairly early on in the game. I usually don't even really invest a ton into this. I can get away and get a lot of kind of fuel to the fire just by doing X as, say, 6 or 5 or 7. Somewhere around there. I don't need to do it for 20. Not in this particular deck when my curve is so low and I've got a decent amount of permanents versus non-permanents. So, 5, 6, and 7, those will get you just fine. 6, I mean, there's only a handful of cards that are above 6, so you're going to hit plenty off of 6. Don't worry about dumping 20 into it. But you know what, if you do, I mean, that's even better. I mean, 20 is greater than 6 or 7 in any case, but I'm just saying. Natural Order. Natural Order is super awesome. This is kind of a bullet fetcher. For 4 mana, you can pay 4 mana and maybe even sack that Dryad Arbor. You just tap to use it for mana and sack the Dryad Arbor, fetch up something like, I don't know, Soul of the Harvest or Edric, or I don't know, whatever you want. It fetches you what you need at the time. So it's pretty awesome. Green fetch card. Defense of the Heart, like I said, almost 100% of the time I'm fetching Avengers Zendikar, Regal Force. I mean, beyond that, if you don't want to do those two, fetch whatever you want, fetch whatever you need. This will fetch you those bolts and slap them right into play. Play this smart. Don't throw this out as soon as you can. Throw this out when you know that it's almost a guarantee somebody's going to hit those 3 or more creatures. I play this when somebody's got 2 creatures on board. Chances are they're probably going to play 1 more creature. So I just don't let it sit out there and get waxed. Now we're getting into my removal stuff. Reality Shift. This is a very techie card choice for this deck for a couple reasons. It's a 2-mana instant, exile target creature in blue. So that's good. You know, people want to play Blightsteel, that's fine. I'll exile it and you'll get a 2/2 morph creature. You want to play Eldrazi's? Fine, I'll exile it for 2 mana. Maybe even flash it back with the old Snapcaster Mage and give you a 2/2. But on the flip side, if I'm in a rut and I really need some Ezuri triggers, I can hit my own permanents, my own creatures, get a 2/2, trigger Ezuri, and then enter combat and utilize that extra counter. So I can use this on myself if I need to. I run a lot of creatures, 34, 14 of which are elves. Chances are I'll hit a nice morph target, so it's going to benefit me. Krosan Grip. This card in particular with split second really snakes people out of nowhere. It can cause some really awesome blowouts. People want to pillow fort behind things like propaganda or ghostly prison. Boom, you could snake that right out from under them. Ain't nothing you're going to do about it because this is going to resolve first. Beast Within. Beast Within is your standard stock perfect green removal spell. Hits a permanent, small drawback. Cryptic Command. This really gets you the value when you start tapping opponents' creatures down and just wrecking them with something like, you know, Jiraga Warcaller, your general, and maybe another elf or 2. That's going to end you the game. This is like a kill card almost. It can cause some major blowouts in a lot of situations. Curse of the Swine. Curse of the Swine is just like Reality Shift because it's a variable X cost. I kind of consider it a board wipe. Variable X cost, targets the creatures, exiles them, and you put a 2/2 for each creature exiled this way. So I can hit some of my own things, get some extra triggers, and hit all the things that I don't want to see my opponents have. So it gives me plenty of options. Cyclonic Rift. My mind's eye, it's a $20 card. I love it. There ain't nothing this thing can't do. It can snake stuff out from under people's feet early game, but if you save it for late game, it's going to cause major blowouts. Plain and simple. I ain't never seen this card run and the overload be cast and it wasn't a blowout situation where it's just like, well, shit, we're fucked. You know, never. So, I don't care. It's a $20 card in my mind's eye. Oblivion Stone. For those situations where you just need to say fuck it and blow everything up, Oblivion Stone blows everything up. I mean, a lot of times I'll throw it out there just to feint and maybe let people draw a hate spell and make me do it. I mean, either way, I can do it when I want with, you know, the 5 cost activation. But when you throw this out there, people dance around it. So that kind of puts your opponents on their toes. I like doing that. Dance, Pilgrim! Earthcraft. Earthcraft is a very good card in this because I run 34 creatures, so I have a lot of targets I can tap to untap a basic land. Now, you definitely don't want to attempt to equip a basic land or enchant a basic land with Presence of Gond. That's a no-no. See? Oops, I bumped the camera. It's a no. So don't do it, okay? You don't do it. I mean, I don't do it. I don't care. I don't do it. I don't do it. I never done it. Never in my life. Never. But anyways, this combos with Squirrel Nest. Very typical thing to combo with there. This makes you an infinite number of non-hasted Ezuri triggers. But either one will work well on its own because this gives you free triggers and a few creatures just as fodder, chump blockers. just bodies. Even with things like Crater Hoof Behemoth, I mean, it's bodies. But it gives you those triggers, and this allows you to get out of ruts if you're in one by untapping your basic lands. I run 20 of 37 basic lands, so I run a good bit. Sword of Feast and Famine, as always, he's in here for the untap. I love that untap, because when I get to drawing cards, that untap mech just, oh man, just poops things out like squirrels. Plus the pro black and green and +2, you know, that's kind of nice too. Swiftfoot Boots, who doesn't love them some Swifty Bees action every once in a while. Whoops. Then we got Lightning Grieves. It seems like shoes in the Magic world have a lot of power because these ones are on fire and make you run fast. And these ones are like just really badass looking. I mean, they're probably Nikes or something, maybe Jordans. Ah, these are probably Jordans, and those are probably Nike. I don't know. Whatever, when you wear these, you're going to be balling hard. Notorious Throng. When I was saying earlier in the video that the rogue creature type mattered, this is why. This is good on its own, even without that rogue creature type. 4 mana, whenever I deal combat damage or something, damage dealt to opponents this turn, so that can be a lot of different things. 4 mana, I get a lot of Ezuri triggers, and a lot of Ezuri triggers with flying. If I can manage to connect with a rogue, which is very surprisingly it happens very often. I almost never cast this for its regular cost. I almost always cast it for its prowl. I get an extra turn if I do that. That's amazing. I get a ton of triggers, a ton of flyers, and an extra turn to wreck somebody's ass. So that's exactly what happens. Somebody gets fucking wrecked after that. Bribery. This can create some fun and interesting situations where I'm stealing a big evasive creature out of somebody's deck. You know, it could be like Rune Scarred Demon or something. Suiting it up with counters and killing them with it. I mean, gives you options. That's what I'm all about, options. Right of Replication gives you options. One thing I like to copy is something like Priest of Titania, or even better, Elvish Archdruid. Buffs all your shit up and it taps to make so much mana, like so much mana, that you almost don't even know what to do with it. I mean, unless you can manage to get, you know, your Eternal Witness off of either Woodland Bellower. I mean, there's ways to get Eternal Witness. Fetch up your Genesis Wave, you know, what have you. Get that Genesis Wave for that 20 or 30 I said was pretty much unnecessary. But either way, you can copy someone else's big stuff. Last but not least, we got Garruk Primal Hunter. He's my favorite of the Garruk series, but beyond that, he seems kind of like an oddball in this deck because his +1 does not trigger, so he seems odd. Why do I have him in here? For his draw power. Even if I get 5 cards out of 5 mana, just -3 him, kill him off the bat, draw 5 cards, boom, I'm reloaded and ready to roll. I just gassed up the tank. And but yeah, sometimes that 3 body does a lot of work for me because a lot of my creatures are 1/1s and 2/2s. So it's almost refreshing to have a bigger creature, even though it doesn't trigger Ezuri. But when I suit up some creature with 4, 5, or 6, you know, maybe more 1/1 counters, and it's just a massive creature, I'm drawing a butt ton, a metric butt ton. Let me write that down. Metric butt ton of cards. So, I mean, you can swap that out. That's kind of like a free slot. So if you don't like that, you know, change it up to however you want. It's completely up to you. So now we're going to do the lands. The last time I did this video, I forgot to do the lands and it really pissed me off because I forgot. So, just making mistakes all around the board, ain't I? I'm bad. Terrible. Bad, Darren. Bad. So, 37 lands, okay? Big 3/7 lands. 20 basics. 20 basics. So, we got 10 forests. It's pretty simple. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Alright, now we got a very simple 10 islands. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 islands. Now we get into our non-basics. Colony Garden. Fun card. I have more green costing cards in my deck than blue, so it's good to have some extra green sources. Colony Garden is a free trigger for Ezuri. It's free. Being it's a plant token, Avengers Zendikar will also buff it up. Again, Dried Arbor, it's a free trigger for Ezuri. It doesn't tap when I play it because it's got Summoning Sickness. But you know what? This card is pretty baller in here. Don't even care. Simic Growth Chamber. Taps for either or, bounce your land. Yavimaya Coast. Same thing. Smooths out your mana. Reflecting Pool. Pretty awesome. Hinterland Harbor. Pretty cool. Mana Confluence. I didn't want to include a lot of lands that damaged me, but I wanted to make sure I was getting my color sources, so I did include this one versus City of Brass. Just in case somebody decided to play an Urborg, I can use this for the Urborg thing. Versus City of Brass, it's just whenever it becomes tapped, it deals damage. Command Tower, because Ezuri needs a tower to command from. Breeding Pool. Pool where things breed and procreate and other nasty things. Tectonic Edge. This is mainly, this and its former and much better predecessor, Strip Mine. These are in here because I want some ways to get rid of things like Mesa Ith, because that can really snake a victory from you if you're in the situation where you've got one big creature and you're trying to swing through with this creature that's got like 10 1/1 counters on, and you can't, because if you swing with it, they're just going to Mesa Ith it. You know, that's my situation. And plus, I kind of always want to have some extra options if I want to get rid of a pesky land, be it, I don't know, Bazaar of Baghdad. That's one that floated I seen recently. I was like, oh snap, like, you don't see a Bazaar of Baghdad that often, but when you do, it's not good. Gaia's Cradle. I don't have a Gaia's Cradle in here, so you know what? I don't want somebody else getting a Gaia's Cradle either. That's a no-no. Fuck that. Things like that. Reliquary Tower. Pretty much a staple in Commander decks, in my opinion. Rogue's Passage. This is one of my favorite cards, favorite lands. I put in almost all my Commander decks because it doesn't take up a card slot and gives me a game-winning ability. Target creature can't be blocked this turn. So when I suit something up with a ton of 1/1 counters, this makes sure that creature just wrecks somebody's face. Nykthos, Shrine to Nyx. This is a great card for here because it's almost like a Cabal Coffers in some ways. Like I said, I have a lot of green permanents versus blue, so I'm always going to be adding a ton of green mana to my mana pool. Inkmoth Nexus, secondary win condition. This comes into play quite frequently, actually. People don't realize what this thing does until I put, like, 5 or 6 1/1 counters off it and start swinging with it. They don't realize until it's too late that that's going to be how they die. And I think finally, oh, not finally. And then we have Cavernous Souls. 34 creatures, 14 elves. I mean, it protects you. This really shuts people out sometimes. You zombie players out there, I ain't backing down, not with a cavern out. Finally, Ancient Tomb. Like I said, I didn't want to add a whole lot of lands that deal damage to you when you use them, but I find Ancient Tomb is just so awesome. He lurches you ahead in the game so fast. It's plenty worth it in my opinion. So that is my Ezuri Renegade. I'm sorry, not Renegade Leader. Ezuri Claw of Progress EDH. So tell me what you think. If you like it, you hate it, whatever, let me know. But I know you like it, right? You like it, right? So you like it. Right? I know you like it. You like it, right? I know. You like it. Well, thank you. Let me know. Keep me posted. If you do it, let me know what you did differently. I'd like to know, because I had quite the time trying to get this stupid guy to work to my standards and how I liked it. So I want to hear what you guys did and what you guys come up against. So let me know in the comments, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.